Kia ora Rugby League fans, and welcome to the ACC's Mad Monday podcast, live from the Export Beer Garden studios. And thanks very much to 4 and 20 Pies. Grab yourself a little rectangular traveller and shove it in your face when you're driving somewhere. It's bloody awesome. Anyway, we're here to talk about what was a great round of rugby league. Not so much for the Warriors, but we still held our heads high. My name's Dai Henwood, and I'm joined down the line by the absolute legend, Mr. Ben Hurley. How are you going, brother?
Very good, thank you, Di. What an amazingly diverse round of rugby league in terms of results. We had close games, we had low scorers, and we had absolute complete blowouts. So just something for everyone.
Yeah, we hadn't actually seen any blowouts, and all the talk's been around how tight this competition is and how things have been going sort of different to how people planned with the teams at the bottom of the table last year stepping up. However, one team that was at the top of the table, they were a victim of one of those blowouts. What's happened to the Cowboys, mate? You and I both have a soft spot for them, and they took a particularly big hiding on the weekend to the Sharks, 44-6.
Yeah, look, I mean, no excuses, but the Sharks are probably up there in the top three favourites for the premiership now. They look slick AF, and they've just got the best half in the game, in my opinion, playing right now. And if you are involved in Supercoach in any way, and you happen to captain him like one Mania Stewart did, you got 274 points on the weekend, which is just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Oh, Nico Hines is a dead set legend. I mean, we saw his form. How awesome was he when he stepped in for Pappenhausen at the Storm playing fullback? Then I was really intrigued to see what would happen, because often awesome players, when they move clubs, it becomes a bit of a shambles. He not only moved clubs, he moved positions into the halves, and he has just been popping off. The Sharks look absolutely phenomenal. They're in second place behind Brisbane, and the Broncos came crushing back down to earth as well. Souths gave them a bit of a touch-up in the second half of that game.
Yeah, I think that's the other favourite. I mean, you'd put the Rabbitohs now into hot favourites, I think, for the premiership. They look incredibly strong right across the park. And in that game, they lost players. They lost Cameron Murray to the bin. I think they had a second binning later in the game, and still just absolutely smashed the Broncos at home as well.
Yeah, I mean, you say at home, but I mean, the poor Broncos have barely had 7 out of 10 games at Suncorp, and two of those have been away games at Suncorp. But that just does my head in. But anyway, we're here to talk about our mighty One New Zealand Warriors, who played in what was a sloppy, dismal day. It was otherwise a beautiful day in Auckland, but then a bit of drizzle came in just for that game, and it turned into a torrential downpour, and the Warriors lost 0 against the Roosters 14.
Roosters go right. Baker, dummies and runs. We're not buying from you today, Baker.
No.
Shots closed.
Tackle him down. That's a try. That looks like a comfortable try to the other Butcher. Nat Butcher, the Warriors just couldn't hold on.
That was pure chaos. Thank God the Roosters were all slipping over. It's obviously pretty moist out there at Mount Smart. I haven't seen it this wet, actually, since I watched Adele play there in 2018. God, pouring with rain that night.
You were rolling in the deep then, I tell you that.
Massively, as Sean puts a little searching kick through.
Great kick. Rolling in your mum. And a huge tackle there by Jackson Ford and Adam Vanua play.
You can't just slip a mum joke and then burst back into commentary.
Wade Egan ties them up as well. This is where they want the Roosters, on the 10-metre line. Is in there making another tackle. Joey Skux brought down by Sifakula and Johnson.
Wade! 3.
Show and
The
go for the
very
cheese.
white shirt of the
Oh, no!
An absolute out of nowhere try from Satili Tupanua after smashing Montoya with a blatant shoulder charge. He injects himself into the game. The cheese just sort of jogged and ran, and then he dropped his foot to the ball. And Tupanua...
Well, let's start with that Tupanua try that came off the back of him putting what I believe was an obvious shoulder charge on Marcelo Montoya, and instead of a penalty and a sin bin, the ruling ended up being Warriors knock on, so the Roosters got the ball. Ben, I mean, I'm going to take the stoic Andrew Webster coach approach and not blame the referees, but that was a pretty hard one to swallow, that shoulder charge.
Look, when you're in the slop, Dai, and you get in the slop sometimes. You know what it's like.
Yeah, we've all been
and
there.
Little moments what win you a game. When it's this tight, when it's this low scoring, when there's you're taking 3 steps and you're sinking your boots, your rugby league boots down into the turf, and you're up to your ankles in water, and the kicks are going nowhere. And it's all it takes is a couple of tiny little moments to go against you. And this was it. This was more than a tiny little moment. This was, to me, the most obvious shoulder charge. They didn't even look at it. Do you feel like the bunker even looked at that?
No, and so I was then going through highlights this morning, and in the West's Penrith game, Brent Naden did exactly the same shoulder charge. And he got immediately sent off, and he was potentially wrapping his arm even more than Tupanua was in that one. And it just felt, to me, that was blatant. But not only was it not a penalty, then the Roosters getting the ball back as well. There were just quite a few calls in this. There was one early in the piece where Tedesco knocked it on as well, and that was just ruled nothing. I see where the fans are calling that there's so many things go against the Warriors, but then I see what Andrew Webster was saying in the press conference, and he said we had a lot of pressure in the second quarter of that game, the last 20 minutes of the first half. We were in the Roosters half the whole time. We were throwing a lot of ball, and we just couldn't get over the try line. We're trying a lot of short balls. One time it went to Jackson Ford, who he just had a loose carry and lost the ball, and I mean it was dubious as whether he'd get over the line or not. But we didn't have that little incisive play, Ben. We couldn't score, which was our main issue.
I know it sounds a weird thing to say, doesn't it? Like, the only difference between us and them is that they scored tries and we didn't. But if you look at the stats, if you watch that game, it was actually really, really even, except for 2 moments.
I completely agree. I didn't walk away from that game feeling the Warriors were outplayed, if that makes any sense. I walked away from it going, well, we had a couple of knock-ons in an awkward place. There was also Sifakula, who he played his first 19 minutes of first grade, and he had pretty limited impact, but he had a messy play of the ball. There was just a couple of times where errors hurt us, and they could get over the line, and we couldn't. We still defended well, but wow, that Roosters defence is something else. They just saw everything we were throwing at them.
Yeah, and there's not a lot you can throw at them in the slop. You've got short balls or short kicks. And that's literally where the 2 Roosters tries came from, is one of each of those. Look, all I want to say is that as a fan of the Warriors, as one of the faithful, as we're called, all we want to see is the team trying their hardest till the end. And if you lose a game like that, 14-0, where you potentially had it hard done by the ref, and it's you're knee deep in water, I think the fans are still going to turn up. That was a sold out game again at Mount Smart. I don't think everybody came who'd bought a ticket, because I wouldn't have gone, but there were still heaps of people there.
Oh, my my son went along with his mates, and his main takeaway was that he doesn't think people are abiding by the no vaping policy as staunchly as they could. What you're saying there, as the Warriors faithful, is so true. And I think to any fans who have just got on board this year, you do have to bear in mind we are coming off potentially one of the worst seasons in our history, right? People were picking us to fully wooden spoon. So the fact that we are now tracking around the bottom of the 8, we've got all of our losses, including our previous loss to the Roosters, our loss to the Storm, have been honourable losses. Well, it was so sloppy, but often it is very sloppy, and you can't tighten it up, it's just sloppy, and you can't blame your lack of girth either, because we had plenty of girth, yet it was still sloppy. The thing is, we're putting the effort in. You can look at Adam Whanua-Blake. He just was, in my opinion, he was our biggest player. He ran 194 metres. He got the most post-contact metres at 64. Wigan, the captain, little Wade Egan, great to see him back. Great to see him get through one game without a vicious head knock, which was a positive. He made 45 tackles, our highest tackler. But it was little moments. Sean Johnson, I give him full respect. His kicking game was on point. He got repeat sets. He drilled it deep on a day that was hard to kick. But little moments like Carey early on in the game just nailed an awesome 40-20. And then it's those things that change the game and they just change momentum. So they're so hard to do, but he nailed it from directly on the 40 and it went straight out on the 20. And we had no, outside of the referee, we had none of those little 50-50 game changes of a penalty in the right spot, a 40-20, those sort of things. And Ben, all you can say as a Warriors fan is we're playing top teams now and we're not embarrassing ourselves. So I hate to say you take a win out of a loss, but to me it sort of feels close to that.
Yeah, I think, by the way, I think we've all thought about being drilled deep by Sean Johnson at some point. But aside from that, I think, we were talking about the Cowboys before, and I think I said on the podcast a couple of weeks ago that they just keep losing really close games, but they also just keep losing them. And then last week they had a blowout. That's what we don't need now. Now that our confidence is a little low because we've lost 2 close games in a row, and arguably, the ref has had a say in both those games. We just don't need a blowout now because I think that would be a season ruiner if we went down to 40 points to whoever. I don't even know who. Oh, we play Penrith next, don't we?
Penrith at Suncorp.
At Suncorp. See, if we go down by a big margin to Penrith, that could be a real turning point in the season.
And just for Warriors fans, you'll see it is a home game next week, and that home game is at Suncorp. So just the draw working in our favour once again. That is a big point because I worried that actually that Storm game could be a bit of a turning point in our season, mainly through the horrendous injuries, just covering off the injury depletions we had, where I think the 2 players we're missing, I think we win this game with them, and that's Tohu Harris and Jazz Tavanga. In the Storm game, in that first half where we were just blitzing them for the first 30 minutes, it was mainly due to Tohu turning Jazz on the inside right through the ruck. And we didn't have either of those players. And Walker is doing a great job, but he's still settling in the halves. And we are such a different team when you've got the 2 bald brothers, Tavanga and Walker, playing in the middle with Tohu operating as sort of an extra member of the spine. So we're juggling around. Jazz Tavanga looks like he's out 6 to 8 weeks. It's he's got a nasty. We seem to be getting nasty leg injuries. And Tohu, they're playing a bit of ducks and drakes. They say a couple of weeks, but he potentially could be out around 4 or 5 weeks. Mitch Barnett, who was injured in round 3, he had a blinder start to the season. Looked like one of our best pickups. He's no idea of return. He's seeing a neck specialist in 2 weeks. He's got severe nerve damage and bruising, and there's even hints of a medical retirement on the cards, which would be an absolute blow for the Warriors. So we're considering all the players we're missing, considering we're missing Chance as well. While we're on the thing of Chance, how do you think DWZ went at fullback?
Oh, I thought he was pretty solid, eh? I know that you sometimes, I notice you're a little critical of DWZ, maybe positionally.
Yeah,
but,
I'm critical of him on the wing. Weirdly, his best position is fullback.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's probably weirdly it's simpler for him because you've just got to be everywhere.
Yeah, because I feel fullback's simpler defending because you hunt the ball carrier, whereas that's what he's doing on the wing, and he's jamming in too quickly, and then people are getting around him, and he turns and tries to grab them, but they just smoke him for speed. I must say, our back three, the catching was on point. In that rain, they didn't drop any bombs. The biggest and only mistake was really Marcelo Montoya going for that short dropout where we sort of gave away an early penalty and they got the first 2 points. So it's not like you could point at anything and say, oh, we were shocking in the centres, we're shocking on the wing. Our forwards didn't step up. They did step up. What I find strange, though, is for, I think, the fourth game, potentially fifth, willing to be proved wrong and probably am here, we carried a bench player who never played. Tane Tuapiki was happening earlier in the year, and yesterday, Freddie Lussick was on the bench, and he didn't play any minutes. Bailey Sirinen came on for a short stint, and the jury's out for me a bit with Bailey Sirinen. I mean, he's covering spots because we're missing so many people. But Josh Curran, I thought, had a pretty staunch game. He played well. I'd like to see a bit more of Sifakula. He's been, they say he's one of the stars, and I was excited to see him play, but nothing really much happened. And, I mean, Tom Ale, Adam Fanua-Blake was staunch. So we keep saying it. There's a lot to like there, and how good would a win against Penrith be?
Yeah, well, they went down, didn't they? Against the Tigers, for God's sakes. How on earth did that happen?
Oh God, nothing. I hated the Tigers winning because Penrith have lost 2 in a row now. They lost by 1 point to the Bunnies, and they lost by a handful of points to the Tigers. Playing Penrith after they've lost 2 games on the trot, and they'll just be getting a hammering from Coach Ivan Cleary. I think with a little preview of that game now, I think they're going to be impossible to beat, to be honest.
I mean, I don't even know what our record of Magic Round's like. I'm going to guess not good.
No, speaking of records, how weird is this? We were tied up 21 wins each against the Roosters yesterday.
I heard you say that in the commentary. That blew me away. I mean, you know, the Roosters are a bit of a glamour club, but I guess they had a couple of quiet years there, but I would not have picked that, 21 all, no way.
No, 21 all and 1 draw, so now it's 22 wins to the Roosters. And final thoughts on this game, for me, it's we need players back. That's all it is. It'll be interesting to see. Ironically, the player will probably get back next week is Chance. They say that he's back tackling and so forth. However, out of all the players we need back, he's almost the one we need back least because DWZ's covering him pretty good.
Is there a world where Chance could play in the halves at all?
No. He's
okay.
Chance is...
You know, I just feel I like Dylan Walker and everything, but I think he just doesn't have the speed to be a full-time starting half. And I think if there was another option, it should be looked at.
So Chance is not a ball player. He's not a ball-playing fullback even. He's a solid defence. He runs those hard yards, but he's not the flashy ball-playing fullback that someone like Nico Hines was when he was at Melbourne, or like Tedesco is, because That's the thing is we kept just getting tackled. Tedesco and Carey were always pinballing out of tackles and it looked like anything could happen off them at any time. I tend to agree with you with Walker because the hard thing is he's been put into the halves, whereas he's been trained and changed his body shape to move into the middle forward role. So he is a bit slower. It's later in his career. To be honest, I think he's been playing awesomely for the Warriors. But yeah, the player we're going to get back is probably not the one we need. Looking forward to this Panthers game. I think it might be another solid outing from us, but I can't see us winning. So if we can scrape a win from that, it's going to be phenomenal.
All I'm saying is we just got to go to Bali and scrape Chanel Harris-Tavita off whatever beach he's and however many mushies he's had, however many mushy milkshakes it takes to live, laugh and love and get him back on that field.
Look, I will take the bullet. I will drink the rest of the milkshake to get him back. Oh, how good would it be? Yeah, if we had Harris-Tavita in the halves, we'd just be fizzing. We can't bring in... We're Metcalf's injured, who's our backup, so who knows what's going to happen, but either way, we're going to be there. We're going to be commentating it. We're going to be supporting the Warriors from Suncorp Stadium. 5 p.m. versus the Penrith Panthers this Saturday night, the 6th of May. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back with the stonker of the round.
Not guilty, Your Honour.
Yeah, what are you getting the ref's room number, mate?
Welcome back to the ACC's Mad Monday live from the Export Beer Garden with a big thank you to 4 and 20 Pies. Grab yourself the Traveller. It's now time for the stonker of the round, and I love a 1-point stonker. This was the Raiders beating the Redcliffe Dolphins 31-30.
Surveys the landscape and goes high out towards Jennings, who loses the ball. He knocks it on. Corey Hunter-Inoida, called by Fogarty. The Canberra Raiders go back in front. It's the Fogarty kick, the Jennings drop, the Harawira-Naira cool head, and then the Fogarty finish. Tapuai-Fido came left. Jesse Brunich spins right and goes in. Jamal Fogarty to win it for the Canberra Raiders. There is his first NRL field goal.
A field goal in the 83rd minute to Jamal Fogarty got that win for the Raiders. The Dolphins, they were almost looking to be comeback kings again, but they couldn't quite get the come on the back in that one, and the Raiders took it out. Hurls, I thought this was going to be an easy win to the Raiders early in the game because you had Croker and Whiten getting in some early tries, and it was all their running. But wow, the Dolphins love to leave it to the second half, eh?
Oh, and speaking of Jack Whiten, big emotional week for him. He's announced that he's leaving the club to go to the Rabbitohs. He's just got a thing for green, clearly. Can't wear any other colour. But he was, some people, I love Jack Whiten. Some people are ugly criers. He is an ugly crier. It showed in every single fold and crease on his face when he teared up after the game. But he was the first over, I think. The first or second try went to Jack Whiten. And if anyone questions commitment to the Green Machine, well, they were proven, that he was proven to be fully committed for the rest of the season. And look, I'm not sure what you're coming off the back fence about later in the app, Dai, but if I was going to come off the back fence about something, it's the fact that you can announce halfway through a season that you're leaving at the end. I just don't think that should be a thing in the NRL.
Look, the whole way it's structured, they need to really sort out some sort of transfer window, some trade window where the season ends, then they have a month from October to November to do all the trading. Because it just mars games like this, and then it just sort of, the fans get really pissed off. It means that the players, in this case, Jack Whiten actually played okay. He is an ugly crier. So is Ricky Stewart. They were both tearing up at the end of end of the game. Wow, Ricky Stewart, crikey dick, he looks like a stressful human being. And I would have if I was Jack Whiten, I would have hated that phone call telling Ricky that you were leaving, the endless sunshine of Canberra. You're leaving the 31-degree days and the beautiful beaches of Canberra to go to Sydney. But wow, Jack Whiten showed he's stepping up. He's a professional league player. And I'll tell you, someone on the Dolphins side of things who had a good game in that second half was Cody Nikorima. Haven't really seen much of him or see him perform over the last couple of years. He bounced around Brisbane, bounced around us, and now he's at the Dolphins. And he put on a couple of tries in that second half, and Wayne Bennett's getting the best out of him.
Well, he's their first choice half now, ahead of the MILF, I believe, who was brought on as the first choice. And you're right, Cody Nikorima. I've always been a fan of him. I'm not sure he fit perfectly at the Warriors. I think he probably was given too much of his own way, potentially, at our club. I don't think he has that relationship, or anyone has that relationship with Wayne Bennett. So he just does what he's told, and that's actually way better for him.
Oh, completely. He did sort of get a bit of a run of things, and no one bosses, no one puts baby Bennett in a corner, I tell you that. Bennett tells people what to do. So big congrats there. The Raiders, they've had a couple of wins on the trot there, and the Dolphins are starting to lose a few games. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season pans out for them. Looking at special mentions, it's got to be Wests beating Penrith. So everything, whether it be Supercoach, whether it be tipping, I picked Penrith to hammer the Tigers.
Yeah, well, Tigers coming from a week off, so they've got two 2-point rounds in a row. And no, I did not pick this in a million years, but it does show you how rain is the great leveller in our favourite game of rugby league. And I would have thought the Penrith Panthers would have been fairly used to playing a little bit of slop. Penrith being up there by the mountains, and the orographic rainfall that'll come off those mountains of an afternoon. But it was the sloppy West Sydney Tigers who got their face in the trough a bit better.
Oh, Luke Brooks, the guy very maligned halfback at the Tigers who fans have wanted to get rid of for a few years. He probably had his best game in 3 or 4 years on the weekend, and his kicking game was on point. He was dishing up the ball for tries, and the West, their fans are going to be happy, because if you're going to knock anyone off, knocking off the reigning premiers for 2 years in a row is a way to go. And looking at the other game, the Dogs versus the Dragons, two teams I have little care about, yet they provided quite a good game yesterday for the final game of the round. 18 points to 16 to the Dogs, and it looked like the Dragons were going to come back and take them out.
Yes, it did. And can I do another special mention, please? It is the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs versus the Mounties in the New South Wales Cup Women's Grand Final, which was played 2 days ago. And the score in that game, the winning score, the Mounties won 1-0.
Oh, I love it. What a grind. What a grind.
It was a field goal, obviously, with 2 minutes left on the clock, to a woman called Tilly Power, which is just a fantastic name, a great rugby league name. T-Power. T-Power powered the ball between the sticks for a 1-0 win. I've never heard of a 1-0 win in the NRL, so this is just marvellous.
I thought
apparently it was an amazing game. There were so many near tries and just amazing last-minute defence. And, just would love to have seen it, actually.
Oh, I'm a big fan of the NRLW. There's cracking games and cracking tackles in that match, but 1-0, you don't get that sort of... I think probably you'd have to look back to the 1920s when they're playing in full dungarees holding gin and tonics to see that kind of scoreline. So the Dogs featured in 2 special mentions there. We've gone over our we've gone over our look forward to the Panthers game. I predicted that the Panthers are going to have a win. What was your prediction on this one?
Yes, I think so. I just don't want it to be a blowout. So I don't know what my prediction is. Magic round is such a weird round that I never know what to think. I don't even know whether I like it.
Well, remember
as a concept.
Remember 2 years ago it was that Sin Bin City where 14 people were sent off because they suddenly decided to change the head high rules. But
Speaking of that, the great photo from the weekend from the Warriors game was a man who'd put Radley get in and written it on an actual bin and took it to the ground at Mount Smart.
I saw that. Phenomenal. And on TikTok it was blowing up a bit because Aussies were just saying how awesome Warriors fans were. So go all the cats who made signs and showed up.
Not guilty, Your Honour.
Yeah, what are you getting the ref's room number, mate?
Now, for this Penrith Panthers versus Warriors game, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. Well, I'm not putting my money, I'm putting somebody else's money where my mouth is in our TAB Good Punt.
TAB Good Punt. Good Punt. Good Punt. Good Punt.
This is thanks to the awesome crew at TAB. We're putting $100 on this game, and I'm putting $100 on the New Zealand Warriors to win the first half and the Panthers to win the game. So I'm picking Warriors up at halftime, Panthers to win the game. It's paying $7. We're putting $100 on it, and wow, our kitty's looking pretty good. We've got $1,800 in our TAB account, and we're finding a way to try and distribute it amongst some good ACC listeners. So stay tuned for that. But if we win this bet, we're going to be $700 richer. So we'll get our little kitty up to $2,400. So stay tuned for the TAB Good Punt. That'll be happening this weekend. Saturday night, we've got the 5 p.m. game. I'll be commentating that alongside Ben Hurley. Henny and Hurley for the first time this year. Is it?
That's right.
Yeah, first time this year.
It is, yeah.
We're going to be commentating the Warriors v. the Panthers. It's going to be an absolute barnstormer. Sure, we're picking Penrith to win, but who knows? Crazier things could happen. Right now, though, it's time for Dai Henwood's Off the Back Fence.
Oh, a long kickoff. The offload to Henwood, and he's off the back fence. Boom time.
Everything doesn't have to be a gimmick. Oh, you got a little tickler on your Connie. Oh, you got to wear a little fancy jingle bells on your hat. You can't wear a normal hat. Oh, you got to have all the games of the round at one stadium. Oh, on Anzac Day, you got to have it at the same place in Australia where it's dark and the fire's happening and a dude's whistling on his clarinet. Oh, awesome. Well, I don't like these special rounds. Granted, I think I've got a big soft spot for the Diggers, and I think Anzac Day's a really good thing. But I don't think that having a special round is a good thing in the NRL. Look at this. Look at this. You go to the dirge of the world, Brisbane, the asshole of the universe, where they've had one sunshine day in 52 years. No one needs to be playing in Brisbane, okay? Brisbane, Suncorp Stadium, which has what looks like the worst turf in the entire NRL. It's just divots are pulling up everywhere. It's not going to sustain 8 games. I don't think we need a magic round. Why? Because it means the Warriors have a home game in Brisbane. Look, I don't know if you have a map in your eyes. I don't know if you did geography in school, but Brisbane's not in Penrose. Brisbane is not in the industrial heartland of South Auckland. Brisbane is not where the Warriors played their footy. And I can't believe the Warriors sacrifice a home game to go to Magic Round. So, look, don't even get me started on Magic. If they introduce close-at-hand Magic to this Magic Round, I am pulling out. I'm never watching rugby league again. If David Blaine or David Bain, if any of the Davids are there, I'm out. Okay? If Paul Daniels is there in a sparkly waistcoat with a magic wand pulling bunnies out of Payne Haas's asshole, I'm not watching it. I refuse. It's outrageous. Just play rugby league normally. Go to home grounds of teams that are playing. Penrith aren't from Suncorp. Warriors aren't from Suncorp. Take rugby back to the good old days. Make America great again. Storm the Capitol.
What about Indigenous round?
Love Indigenous round. It's full of diversity. It's really honouring players both from here and across the ditch. You know, nothing gets me more barred up for a game of rugby league than 4.5 minutes of didgeridoo on the top of a stadium. Let me tell you that. Nothing gets me more barred up for some tackling than a decent haka, whether it be from Papua New Guinea or the New Zealand Maori. I love Indigenous round. It's the one you really got to get your eyes on.
What about women in league?
Oh, I love women in league round. That's the thing. Strap the bussies down and get out and play some hard-out league. Women in league round. Granted, all the jerseys don't have to be pink, but we're not only honouring the women who play the game, we're honouring the women who take the kids to footy. We're honouring the women who look after all the admin for the clubs. We're honouring the women such as Raylene Castle, who's CEO of clubs. Oh, women in league round, can't get enough of it. Let's make 18 of them.
So it's just Magic round.
I hate Magic round. I got to be honest, yeah. Anzac Day, awesome, except we need to play a home game. Women in league round, great. Indigenous round, awesome. The gay round, I loved. Granted, only Manly took part in that, and it ended up a shambles for their club, but I think we need to make one round a lot gayer. We need another... So, yeah, it's just, I'm really wound up about this Magic round, to be honest. You know what? I'd love Magic round if we did it at Mount Smart.
Let's hope the Warriors can pull a win out of their ass.
Absolutely. And just on that side note, on the ground, the Suncorp is having a shambles with their turf this season.
You're very turf focused about the Suncorp's turf.
Yeah, I mean, they need to get G Lane out there. He's doing some good grass work at the moment. But I tell you what, how good was that Mount Smart ground under that horrendous conditions?
Unbelievable. And we all know it's built on a toxic waste dump down there in Penrose. So it's pretty good that it's...
The toxic waste might have been provided.
Together.
The toxic waste might have provided the fact that it was luminescent green through the entire game.
Amazing.
Oh, there we go. I tell you what, I'm just pausing, listeners, so a bit of blood can return to my head.
Where's it going? I know where it's going. It's on your other head.
I got a bit wound up there about the 1 out of 5 special rounds I don't like. Now, before we head off, I just want to tell you a little bit something about the Export Ultra Beer Garden tour to Paris. That's Paris. That's Paris. Not the Paris just out of Taihape, the Paris in France. Export Ultra and the ACC are giving you and a mate the chance to go on tour with the ACC and visit the best beer gardens outside of New Zealand. Just so happens that the Export Ultra Beer Garden Tour will be on at the same time as a certain tournament. There's some sort of tournament happening in France in October. This is flights, accommodation for a week in Paris, hosted by the lawn man himself, G Lane, Matt Heath, and Mania Stewart. 3 of ACC's just low-key, non-drinking, book reading nerds.
They'll be off to the Louvre.
Oh, if you go on this, it's going to be 23 hours at the Louvre, a little sip of coconut water, then back to bed. All you've got to do...
It's a punt on the Seine.
All you've got to do if you want to be on this amazing trip with those boys is just text Paris, Paris, to 3236. Follow the link to register and you are in the draw. It is as easy as that. And also, while you're at it, give the new Export Ultra a try. 99% carb-free refreshment. Get your mouth round that. Anyway, that has been a wrap of the most recent round of NRL. We'll join you after Magic Round to talk about hopefully a Warriors win against Penrith. Take care, Ben. Take care, listeners. And also stay tuned for our Supercoach potty tomorrow.
Hide it up.
An Australia without rugby league is not Australia.